It's commit first, figure the rest out later, and limitations force creativity. Those two, LFC has been my jam since the pandemic. Limitations force creativity. So even when I got on Penn and Teller Fool Us, I've had friends who were on it, and when the show airs, they're just like at their homes, and I'm like, like for me, this is a big deal. Like, I'm not even 30 and going to be on Fool. Like, this is a big deal. So I'm going to own this. So what I did was I reached out and found every CW affiliate in the country, reached out to as many CW affiliates as I can and said, hi, my name's Denny Corby. I'm going to be on the season finale of the hit show Penn and Teller Fool Us. Spoiler alert, there is no season finale. I was just on the last episode of the season, but season finale sounds amazing.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier.
Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. And oh, wait, this isn't just any Facility Rockstars episode. This is the 50th episode of Facility Rockstars. Not only is it the 50th episode of Facility Rockstars, we have got a celebrity guest today. So hang on one second and you're going to meet him. So he's someone who truly embodies the magic of entertainment. He first fell in love with magic as a kid growing up in Scranton, PA. And it's safe to say he never looked back. With a passion that started at a young age and encouragement from his family, he made magic not just a hobby, but a career. He's a successful magician, entertainer, and keynote speaker. He performs regularly for a slew of corporate clients, including Comcast, Tyson Foods, Berkshire Hathaway, and BMW. Shows range from intimate office settings to crowds of 2,500 and everything in between. Through appearances on major cable networks like Fox and NBC, Denny has graced television screens across the country. Wherever you meet him, Denny is guaranteed to make your day. If you need a little magic in your day, he's your guy. Denny Corby, welcome to the 50th episode of Facility Rockstars.
What a pleasure and honor it is to be here. This is amazing.
It's amazing to have you, man.
It is so good to see you.
Same. So let's rewind the film here a little bit, right? I haven't seen you in person. If I recall correctly, it was April of 2014 at a Jack Daly, yes, the legendary Jack Daly sales seminar, and you were the special guest.
I was. That was a hoot. That was a great day.
It was awesome. I mean, we're having a great time with Jack, and he says, well, hold on. After lunch, I've got a special guest. This guy, Denny Corby. We're like, what's he going to do? And you did this amazing magic trick, and you made us laugh.
Yeah, that was a great opportunity for me, and very fortunate he allowed me to come and do that. And I met you and some other wonderful people there that I still keep in touch with a little bit. So yeah, he is a gem.
Yeah, he's the master. So I want to start by saying, I would imagine everyone listening has seen The Office, the show The Office, right? And there's a brick building. I'll let you tell the story, but there's a brick building at the beginning of the show, and somehow that's related to Denny Corby. You want to tell us how?
Yeah, so born and raised in Scranton, and The Office is based off a paper supply company in Scranton, and my family owned the paper supply company in Scranton. So the big brick tower in the opening credits, that's our building. We still own the building, but after 100 years in business, family owned. Dad sold in 2022. So we still own the building. He just sold off the business. So,
and every time the show comes on, you get to see your building.
Yeah, and it is one of my favorite shows. It kills me. It is so funny.
It's great, man. It's reality.
That's
why.
It is.
All right, so let's talk about that a little bit with your history. Now, I introduced you as this amazing, awesome entertainer, which you are, but you also have roots in facilities, and as the show is Facility Rockstars, right? So because it's the 50th, I'm taking some liberties. Like, we're going to talk about facilities, but we really want to just entertain with you, Denny, or have you entertain us, of course.
Yeah, I grew up in the facilities world, well, so Pennsylvania Paper and Supply, it was less paper, like, physical paper. It was more janitorial supplies, cleaning products, all things that you need to run a facility, all the equipment, the chemicals, the anything and everything. We still sold some paper, but at a certain point, it was hard to compete with the Staples and WB Masons and stuff. Even I'm blanking on the one name, but they would just throw in the paper when you got some other products. But because of having all of the products, my dad started Sovereign Commercial Services. Used to have a different name, but he changed it years ago. So he started that about 20 years ago ish or so, called Sovereign Commercial Services. So growing up, since I was the summer I got my license, I was stripping and waxing floors, cleaning bathrooms. I had cleaning routes in high school. I remember but just to me, humor and jokes and everything was always there. So I remember my first summer job was at a very religious Catholic high school that had no AC. We had to wear masks because they had like asbestos tiles. So we had to use like not too much stripper and all that stuff. And I was taking masks, putting them on like all the like religious statues. They were getting mad. I was like, at Sovereign, everyone stay safe. They're like, take it off. I'm like, sorry. All right. But yeah, so I've grown up in facilities around all the facilities products, and then got up to sales for my dad doing that. And my parents knew I always had this love and this passion for entertainment. So they were like, hey, listen, at a certain point, like, hey, why don't you go try the entertainment full time? We don't want you to be 30, 40, 50, however old in life, just going, what if I would have tried, and somehow made it work, made a career, and then busted through the pandemic. And now we're here, baby. So when you saw me back with Jack, that was right when I was first starting. I was just leaving my dad, just going into the entertainment full time. I think that's a little bit why me and Jack just kind of we clicked. We have similar personalities, and that was his way of kind of just like going, hey, if he can get me in front of some people also. So
He's good people. And good on your parents for encouraging you so much. You're so lucky.
They're the best. Oh, yeah. I don't think I realized it until like more recently. Like obviously I like knew, but the older I get, and each year I'm like, wow. Just because coming from a family business, and my dad's an entrepreneur, you meet other families and where people have not similar businesses, but they have kids who are, and kids are not forced, but the parents get pissed or something if they don't stay in the family business. And it was never forced. So I'm super fortunate for that.
That's fantastic. Now, you shared in previous conversations we've had with Jack Daly, and how he didn't just help you with getting on the stage there in Boston with us, right? But
Yeah.
you've been to other events. Could you expand on that a little bit? Because it's a great story.
Yeah, he just the one day we were just chit-chatting, and we just always just like kept in touch. And I don't know if we hopped on a phone call, I don't know what it was, but he just linked me up with Vern Harnish. And if you know the name Vern Harnish, he has Scaling Up Summit, the Gazelles Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, scale, whatever, however you want to put them. And without blinking an eye, it was probably the easiest gig I ever booked. He just went, hey, this guy's going to be pretty good. He does this, and this. And he just goes, hey, booked. And I was like, wow. So I got to close Scale Up Summit in 2019 in Atlanta. And that was just wild.
You got to close it.
I pretty much closed. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So there's something. So I've heard the story, right? So I want more, man. I want more from you on this one. You followed. You're a big deal, right? And I think you followed someone who's also kind of a big deal, right? And,
Yeah.
and you had to improv a little. So yeah, go.
So I didn't have to, but that's just my style. So
sure.
Vern knows everybody and anybody, and he has the best of the best coming to speak and engage with his attendees. And we're backstage hanging out, and this was maybe like an hour before. He goes, hey, by the way, we have a special guest. Jesse Itzler is going to come on stage and speak for like 15, 20 minutes before you, and then you're going to do like your thing. And I was like, Jesse Itzler. And if you don't know Jesse Itzler, he a tremendous entrepreneur. I believe he started NetJets and sold it. He used to write songs and jingles for teams and different sporting events and just different businesses. His wife has Spanx, so they're just a very entrepreneurial family. And he's a very charismatic and very strong speaker. Like when he's good on stage. Like there's some people who have great content, but they're not like powerful on stage. He has good content and he's powerful on stage. He destroys. And I was telling you prior, he wrote the book Living with the Seal. So before David Goggins was known as David Goggins, this whole big thing, and before even he was the SEAL who lived with Jesse Itzler. If you don't know the book, it is amazing. Living with the SEAL. It's all about how he hired David Goggins. He doesn't say who it is, but it's Navy SEAL to come like live with them. It is amazing, especially the audio version. So I'm like, oh man. So already I'm like, I'm on edge to begin with, because it's like, it's not just an ordinary gig. Like it's Vern, and Vern loves magic, by the way. Loves magic.
Oh, that's good.
Like he used to do magic, and he's told me stories like in high school he used to do stuff with his brother and everything. There was a cocktail hour for like the speakers, and I did magic for him and his son. Like we shared a somewhat of like a very small bond. So, and I'm like already like hyped, anxious, nervous. So Jesse Itzler gets out there and is just crushing. And he tells a story how he was in Atlanta when he was rapping years ago. And I might mix up some of the names, but the city decided to bring all the inner city kids into the arena and hold a giant concert. And it was like LL Cool J, him, Salt and Peppa, and he was like very low on the totem pole. And even like big other name acts were getting booed off the stage. He's like, there was fights everywhere. No one cared about the show. But he's like, you're not going to boo me off the stage. So he grabbed a bunch of swag backstage, and they were like, ladies and gentlemen, Jesse Itzler. And he comes out and he's like, who likes free stuff? Who likes t-shirts? And he just starts throwing t-shirts to like the crowd. And he's telling the story, and then he goes on to tell, whatever stories he's doing. And in my head, I love a good callback. I love great callbacks. So of course I'm backstage in the green room area, and there's the black napkins wrapped for the silverware. So I took out all the silverware, took all the black napkins, and I had like a handful. And so Jesse is done, standing ovation, kills it. Vern's like, wow, how are we going to top that? And I'm like, I have no idea. And he's, goes on, does my intro. So I come out on stage, and I just went, who likes free stuff? Who likes t-shirts? And just started throwing out all the napkins. And I went, my name's Denny Corby. Good night. And just walked off stage. And then I came back on and did the rest of the show. But that was, to me, that lives in my head rent free. And I think about that often.
That's classic. Oh, it's great. Good move, man. Good move. So like, did this bring you other places too? Like, you just scale up Summit. Like, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Like, where did things go from there? And, do you want to talk about the Penn and Teller experience you had?
Yeah. So that was right before. So 2019 was a bonkers year. I went from, that was my best year ever. So that was all the years of hard work. So it's if you want to go back, when I first became full-time, I was like, oh, quit the family biz, doing this full-time. I'm like, I'll make a website. People are going to book me. And I was like, oh, but that's not exactly how, things work. You have to like work at it. So after, 6 months to a year, I'm like, I have to put in some like hard effort. Like I have to really start doing some stuff. So I really boiled down. I found my little, I have a couple of little niches that I do a lot of shows, but I have a couple of niches that I really, really focus on. One of them is private golf and country clubs. I have a small niche there. I have a semi big name in this little world. I have a podcast called Private Club Radio, where I chat with club managers in a great way to connect and engage with different club people. So, working real hard, finally got up to 2019. And earlier that year in February, I recorded for Penn and Teller Fool Us. And it was just rocking. I get to do Scale Up Summit. Vern was like, you're going to see him on Penn and Teller soon. Like, it was just epic. I met some great connections there. Because I was able to go there the entire time. And, my name's everywhere, the face, and just Vern, and Jack, they're all introducing me to people. Actually, where there's a private speakers dinner. There's a private speakers dinner. And I'm looking around this room, and I'm like, I don't belong here. Because it's like the best of the best, the brightest of the brightest at this giant table. And Vern's going around introducing people and saying things. And it's me. And do you remember Eric Partaker. Or no, you weren't there. No, but it was this dude, Eric Partaker. He's a entrepreneur. He built a burrito company in Europe and scaled and sold it. And me and him just like found each other. And we were both, he even like looked at me and is like, I don't belong here. I'm like, bro, I do magic. I don't belong here. And we just had this like great connection. And so Vern's like, okay, I want everyone to go around the room, say who you are, where you're from, what's got you excited, and something that's just on your mind. So everyone's like, it was AI before AI was popular. This one woman did a thing with ants and like, insects and how it relates to human behavior, like all this crazy stuff.
Oh,
and
it ran the spectrum.
And it gets to me. And I was like, Denny Corby, I'm doing the show, blah, blah, blah. What am I thinking about? Is a hot dog a sandwich? I don't know. Like, it's like the room. Some people got it, some people didn't. But no, it was a great opportunity, a great time. And then 4 months later, the pandemic hit. So wild times.
So what all right. So that is amazing, by the way. All right. So the pandemic hits well, for all of us, right? A little bit like this, a little rocky, but yeah. I think what did you end up doing during that time? Because I was impressed with what I remember you saying about pivoting. Or go ahead, Denny.
Very rocky. And you didn't ask the question that you asked people in the very beginning for this, which is like, what is like, what's your favorite saying, or what's like your like.
Yeah, I did take the liberty, and you know what? Thank you for bringing me right back to so Denny. Could you please tell me what your biggest lesson learned has been?
No, so it's two. It's commit first, figure the rest out later, and limitations force creativity. Those two, LFC has been my jam since the pandemic. Limitations force creativity. So coming off the pandemic or going into it, so now it's beginning of 2020. I'm still rocking it, like riding the wave, because I don't do anything half-ass. So even when I got on Penn and Teller Fool Us, I've had friends who were on it, and when the show airs, they're just like at their homes, and I'm like, like for me, this is a big deal. Like, I'm not even 30 and gonna be on Fool. Like, this is a big deal, so I'm gonna own this. So what I did was I reached out and found every CW affiliate in the country, because that's where Fool Us airs. At least it was. I think it still is on the CW. Reached out to as many CW affiliates as I can and said, "Hi, my name's Denny Corby. I'm going to be on the season finale of the hit show Penn and Teller Fool Us." Spoiler alert: there is no season finale. I was just on the last episode of the season, but season finale sounds amazing. We had the season finale of Penn and Teller Fool Us. I'm more than happy to make myself available for any in-studio appearances on my own dime. So for about 3 weeks before my airing, I was flying and traveling all over the country just to do these little 3-4 minute spots, because in my head, I wanted a promo video that had all of these news people just going like, Denny Corby, Denny Corby. So if you go and find my sizzle reel, it's all these news stations. It's because I was, just going to all these things just to help promote, but just to get the word out, just to make it a thing. And then I did a big viewing party. So I had like 100 and some people pay $30-$40 a pop to come watch a show for free that they can see, or that they can watch at home for free, but to come party with me. I think it ended up costing me like $40 or $50 a person, because I had a DJ, I had a guy juggling fire as people were coming in, I had like a balloon artist, I bought everyone's first drink, there was food, it was like photographers, videographers. There's a video up on YouTube too, like the highlight of that. To me, it's go big or go home. So coming off a great year, 2020 is banging, and all of a sudden this thing starts happening, and I'm like, oh yeah, all right. And I remember I was doing a gig outside of Vegas. When I say outside, I think it was like Lake Havasu or something. And I'm flying home, and like a couple stuff started to cancel. There's been some feelers, and then like all the big gigs just start canceling. And I'm like, ooh, this is not good. So you get home, and then like I think I was home for like a week or two, and it's just like, ooh, going into a very dark place. And because we weren't sure how this was all going to go. Things were closing, you couldn't go anywhere. Sure. So yep. I think this might be one of the first places I'm like talking about this on like a big platform, you and all your people, your millions of listeners. But I went to go back to work for my dad. because he's had all the cleaning supplies, all the sanitizers, all of that. And I think he just acquired another competitor also. So I was like, hey, can I come work? He said, sure. And and it was one of those, I'm not going to ask questions. Like, I just need to A, get out of the house. B, I just wanted to start generating revenue because nothing was coming in. And I didn't want it to be 3 months, 6 months, a year, just go like, oh, this is not a good place. So I went and worked for him. And so I went from doing a gig outside of Vegas to cleaning the warehouse. It was taking inventory. It was like legit cleaning a dusty warehouse, but it's just what they needed. They were slammed. They were trying to get stuff out and they needed air, they needed space. And I was like, hey, whatever. So I would come home just filthy. And I remember I got my first check and I was like, oh God. Like I was like, this is brutal. But it was like one of the, it is what it is. And I was cleaning one day. I was thinking, I was like, okay, there has to be a way out. Who needs help? So then I was thinking about my clients. Like, my clubs have to be struggling because a private golf and country club, if that's an amenity that you don't need. So if things are really starting to hit the fan for people, if the club is not providing value, their memberships are going to start going, well, we're just going to leave the club or, whatever. So I reached out to all of my clubs, never done anything like that. I just said, offering virtual shows. It was like stupid cheap. I was like, no one's going to pay for this. Offering virtual shows. Let me know if you're interested. And I remember my email and phone just blowing up. I sent an email blast to all my club clients and blowing up. You
filled exactly what they needed at that moment.
Yep. And then, so my very first show, my first virtual show, I did 4 or 5 shows on April 1st. And I did that on purpose. And so I made and put together a virtual show in about a week. Wow. No BS. Maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks. But I didn't know the first thing about, I've done a couple TV spots, but so I found people who knew the live streaming setup, and we got cameras and switching Stream Decks before they were popular. And I just put together this show, and I did it purposely on April 1st because if they sucked, and I made sure it was all of my clients, like all like existing relationships I had, because I did it. So worst case, if it hit the fan, it'd be like, April Fools, you thought this was going to work? Get out of here. No. Brilliant. But that ended up just getting the juices back. And from there, I was rocking and rolling.
I'll tell you, man, that's like, so April 1st, you think about, if I recall, what was it? No, I don't know. March 8th, I think, was the last day I sat in my chair in my office. And then, things started to happen. That's less than a month, Denny.
Yeah.
You went, you did what you had to do. And then you launched a whole new concept for your business. That's amazing, man. Nice work.
Commit first, figure the rest out later.
Yeah.
Limitations force creativity. It was just all of that. It was just that. Yeah.
I'm impressed. I have a question, because you move your hands every now and then. And is that a deck of cards in your left hand?
Always.
Okay. So
not always, because I'm not like that. It's just like, I'm a very like antsy person, like a very anxious person. So instead of like, walking in place or whatever, it's just something to keep the hands occupied as I just chit chat here.
I love it.
And it was like Christmas. I did just get another 100 and another 120 packs because they were on sale at Sam's Club. So it was like Christmas. So I think I'm up to like 600 decks. It's like, they're on sale. Let's just stock up more because things aren't going down in price.
Hey, rock stars. If you're tuning into the podcast and are feeling overwhelmed by all the maintenance demands at your facility, don't stress. We've got you covered. Our sponsor, Coludis, is your go-to partner to help you tackle all those demands and get them done right, on time, and with top-notch quality. From project planning to execution, Coludis is there to make hard work easy. Visit coludis.com today to get started. Are you are you going to do a trick for us? Oh, here I am putting you on the spot, right? But you don't have to, Denny. We can move on.
No, I can. All right. So I'm going to, this is more of not so much a trick, but it's more of an observation test. Okay. I'm going to show you some cards. I want you to memorize as many details about the cards as you can. in about 5 seconds. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to memorize as many details about these cards as you can. Ready?
Okay.
Here we go. And if you're listening, just use your imagination, I guess. If you're watching, even better. All right, so here we go. Ready? That's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Question number 1, how many cards were there?
5.
There was 5. The questions will get more difficult as we go on. Don't worry. Next question is, what was the bottom card?
Blank.
Actually, it was the ace of spades. See, a lot of people miss it. There's a ton of white space on it. I put it on the bottom. Totally my fault. Next question is, what color were the backs?
Blue.
Right. They were actually red. The last question is, what were the other 4 cards?
Blank.
No, it's actually the royal flush. So,
all right, Denny. Okay.
So just a quick little observation test. Yeah.
That was great. That didn't make me look good now, did it?
No one passes. No one passes.
That was outstanding, man. Thank you. Thank you for playing along, Denny. That was outstanding.
I should have known to do something. I should have had something planned, but I'm surprised I couldn't get the focus on that, but that's on me.
No, better, more authentic. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So going to go a little out of, I had a few questions ahead of this, but I want to ask you about Private Radio Club, because like, this is a pretty big deal. Like, we're happy that Facility Rockstars has reached 50 episodes. If last I looked, I think you were at 423 podcast episodes. Is that right?
Yep. More than half of those are mine. So it was a podcast that I purchased. I was because I've been in the space for so long. We're now going back, getting towards 2023. I wanted to double down more into clubs because I've built so many great relationships, and like I knew like it was always been like a small niche, but I'm like, I'm really liking this niche, and it got me through the pandemic. Like the clubs got me through the pandemic. I can't tell you how many virtual club shows that led to some of my biggest corporate gigs. For virtual shows, some of my biggest corporate clients. So I built some amazing connections and relationships, and I love, that's what I love the most, is connecting people, and just like their relationships part of everything. And I've made some amazing relationships and connections with club managers. Like some have like become borderline family. Like just that sort of like hominess. And I was like, I want to double down more into clubs. And I kind of have a good gift to gab, a decent voice for radio. And a buddy of mine had private club radio. I was on the show prior. Pandemic hit. He was doing more like the marketing and branding for clubs, like making their newsletters and flyers and all that stuff. So when clubs dropped a lot of outside vendors around the pandemic time, they're trying to cut some corners, because they're, hey, if we can bring this in house, and hey, it'll save us. We don't know what's going on. So the show kind of like died out, just kind of like fizzled. And I was going to start a new show, but it already had doors open, already had a base, already had a name and a following. So me and the former host worked out a deal. I purchased the show from him. And now, so I think I got it with about 200 episodes, and now we're up to 4 something. So I've done about 200 episodes in 2 years on private club radio, where, shameless pluggy, it did start as like, oh, a great way for me to market myself and my show, which it has, but the stories I've been able to tell, and just the hearing from people and the feedback. I was just at the big Club Managers World Conference in Tampa, and
how was that?
It's a niche show, just like all the other conferences. It's another just niche conference where people just nerd out over club management, but just being how welcoming they are to a total outsider, someone like me, and just people coming up going, whether they know my name or not, or they recognize the voice, or they see my badge and said private club radio, like, oh my God, I loved when you had on, and they shared their story. And just like, people coming over on H-2B visas who, I just recorded an episode today of a guy he runs the Monticello Motor Club. Beautiful. It's a private club and racetrack in Monticello, New York. And 14 years ago, he was cleaning cruise ships. He wasn't even a cleaner. He was cleaning the crew areas.
Oh,
like, so it wasn't even like cleaning from like the nice, he was cleaning the dirtiest of the areas, like another like facilities guy, which is weird that it was today too. And there was a big storm. It like hit the ship. It killed 2 people. He then went on to be like, he found hospitality. It came to America, got an H-2B visa, worked at a club as like, a busboy. One thing led to another, led to another, led to another. 14 years later, he's running the Monticello Motor Club.
Wow.
And like we're taught, and just like there's other stories like that. And it's like you have these people who come from absolutely nothing, whether they're American or not, and just, and you just have this amazing, wonderful stories. And some episodes are what they are, but there's like these really good stories mixed in, and that's been amazing to be able to bring light and bring those stories out to people. It's so cool.
Good for you for creating that space for them, right? To share, like the community that it sounds like you're building is unbelievable, Denny.
And you're doing the same thing. So we all appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Denny. So how did I don't know if you answered this or even if I asked it, but how did you get into the club gig? Like, how did it all start and why clubs?
I sort of a mistake, sort of not. I don't fully know the entirety, but I think I don't know if I got a gig at a club once and was like, oh, I kind of did a really good job. I think it's, coming from a entrepreneurial family. My dad's was in the YPO group. And so from there, just being around him and his business buddies, but then also, I had a very good childhood, but I also like worked my ass off. Like I was stripping and waxing floors and cleaning bathrooms, and it wasn't in like nice places. Like these are like nasty facilities, like, manufacturing plants, and where, and so I think just being able to have the gift of gab, and whether it's, I can talk in bullshit with the lowest of the lows to the highest of the highs and still make everybody feel appreciated. And I can still hold a conversation with anybody and just have that ability to chameleonize. And when you're at a private club, which is a lot like corporate gigs too, you're in someone's living room, and that's where a lot of not meaning, it's a different space. It's not like a corporate gig. It's a little bit different. And just from being able to, just having done little shows and sleight of hand stuff for different groups and being able to pinpoint who's who. So, okay, he's the drunk one. He's the jerk. That's the annoying one. Oh, he's the really nice, soft-spoken guy. That's the funny one. That's the annoying wife. And just being able to use all that stuff in the show and being able to read the room and the people, it takes a little, there's a art to it. So I think once I found I clicked well with that group, then I was like, okay, there's something here. So it was like, kids always made me anxious and nervous. I never did like kid shows, never did like any of that stuff, but like I found my people there. And then once, and all those managers talk a lot too. So once I started doing one and another, then the ball just started rolling, and that's kind of how it kind of started.
Great story. So you do your podcast virtually. Do you ever do them in person, or is it always from the studio?
Yep. Sometimes I do them in person, like when I'm going to clubs, and sometimes managers don't want to come on, or they don't feel as though they have a story or whatever. But I always try to do at least one sometimes when I travel. But sometimes it's the timing just doesn't work out or whatever. But definitely doing the Monticello one in person. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Cool. What was the craziest episode? You have to name names.
There really isn't crazy ones, because a lot of them, some of them are very reserved, not reserved, but they are careful of what they say and how they say it.
Yep.
Because for obvious reasons. But one of my favorites, I would say, is it was Alfredo Hildebrandt. And I brought him on because he just had this warm smile. And I think he was from Colombia or Ecuador. Came over at like 13, got into clubs because of his frat brother, and his thing was it wasn't about the club. He was finding his managers. So he didn't care what he worked for. It was who he was working for. So when we were talking, he was like, I came from a line of studs. He's like, I wasn't picking my places. I was picking my bosses, because I know my bosses were going to. And it was like, here's this kid who comes over, learns to speak English, and is just hungry, and is now running a really successful club in Ohio. And you have people who are given the world and complain about their feelings or whatever and don't make anything of themselves. So I think that
All
was
perspective. Yep.
perspective.
Yep.
So I think that was like one of like the first episodes where I was like, ooh, like wow.
That's incredible.
So I wouldn't say crazy, but I do have a show partner called Member Vetting, and this guy does crazy. Like he could vet. So the members apply. They applicate all the info to his team, and they're all like ex-Navy SEALs and military, and he's able to go in and just make fact check basically. It's a deeper background check than just your average background check. And just some of the stuff he finds is bonkers. And he doesn't just do it for clubs. He does it for like big businesses. It's the same thing. He like found clubs because he was a member of a club and is like, how come we're not using, not just like, how come we're not doing a better job at vetting people for coming in, or just saying who they say they are? Because it's people are like, oh, I do all of this. And he's able, it's big. You don't give. Like you don't do this, or just so some of those episodes are wild. Like finding people's like ghost accounts on social media. So like like user 8524 who's fat shaming and doing whatever. They have found like, hey, this member or this person who's applying to membership, they might donate and look great and do all this, which they are, but also they're this user, and they're able to fact check and verify and go, we know for a fact it is this person who is fat shaming and having racial slurs and dogging people online. Or sometimes it's not even that, but it's finding, it's the person's significant other, their husband, their wife, who's ever, and it's, they're all over on Yelp. They've, their user 852 on Yelp, who is mad at everybody and does all the bad reviews. And it's like, do you want those? Do you want that personality in your? So it's just like some of that stuff. It just gets wild. And the fact that, to me, why more clubs don't do it is beyond me. And it's so cheap. It's like less than $1,000 for like a big package. And I'm like,
oh wow.
I want to give some of my friends like, hey,
yeah, right. But protect the brand, like really for
$1,000
and for the club, like protect your brand.
That's the big thing. It takes one person.
Well, exactly. Like you mentioned, he would vet a lot of Navy SEALs and military people. I didn't catch that connection.
That's who's on his team is like military people. So like the intel, like he has all these like military people. Like they're killer. It's awesome. It's called Kennis or ASG Investigations. Shout out Paul Dank. If you guys are interested, tell him you heard about him because of me. He's a wild, great dude, amazing stories.
Paul Dank, we got it. Awesome.
Paul Dank. Awesome. Danky Doodle Dandy, as I call him.
Denny, I'm going to bring you back into the facilities world for a minute, because I know you've got some experiences that I want to hear again. I had the pleasure of hearing them once already, right? But we have to share this. You have to share this with everybody else. So I'm going to back up and say, all right, you're with Sovereign, right?
Yep.
You're in sales, right? Make sure I set this up for you here. You're in sales. You're calling on facility people and whatnot, people to sell your services to.
Yep.
And there was this tiny little toy company named Toys R Us. Did I remember correctly?
You remembered correctly.
Okay.
Yep.
What happened?
So the short story long is I bought a list because it was one of those, I knew enough about sales back then to be dangerous. And this was before the big like social media craze too. So, the thing was, you bought a list and you worked that list. We bought a Dun & Bradstreet, whatever. And I was mad because I said, no, retail stores. We did not want retail stores, wanted, big businesses, fence, trash cans, bathroom, square footage. And we got all these things. And on that list was the Toys R Us distribution center, which was maybe an hour and a half from us. So I called, and the dude picked up on the first call, which you cold call. You get the guy on the phone the first time. And like I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, hey, Dad, and I don't know if he heard like the youngness in my voice, my just started to crack. And I was like, hey, I just said like, hey, here's who I am. Here's what we're doing. It just happened to be the right message to the right person at the right time, which is just what sales is. And he was like, this sounds great. He's like, actually, we're having a little bit of it. We would love, do you want to come scope? And I'm like, so immediately I'm like knocking on my dad's door, like, I got one. He's like, where? I was like, the one. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, Toys R Us. He's like, we don't want retail. I was like, the DC center. Like, we're like, he's like, how? I was like, don't ask. So we go and check it out and like have a great conversation. And like me and the other sales guy, he's like, how in the world? I'm like, I don't know. Short story long, as we're saying, we go back a second time to go with, we have our other person where I think we're going to present or even just have like a deeper conversation of like, because they weren't happy, but it was like, okay, well, what are you really paying for? What, because that's also sometimes too, like they're not happy with what they're getting, but it's like also, this is what the contract is. Like you didn't want to pay, so it was one of those, hey, if we're really going to start digging down. So we're about a mile away and he calls like, hey, hate to do this. We had a thing pipe burst. We gotta do whatever. We're like, hey, we're right here. If you need help, like we'll come, like buckle up, like we can help you guys. Like, no, we're fine. So then fast forward, we were continuing the conversation. I was in touch with the assistant facilities guy. Now the head facility guy, I don't know if he leaves or I don't know if he gets canned, but he's gone. So now assistant guy becomes main guy in our relationship. It starts, he's now has so much on his plate. He's like, listen, this is just not like a good time, blah, blah, blah. So like, he kind of like deflates like a little bit, but to keep the everything rolling, we had, I don't know if we had them or if I had them made, but for the sake of a story, I had like 100, had to be, these blue Sovereign stress balls. So I took a big style pizza box, like a big flat box. So they were all just flat. So it just looked funny. And I sent this giant box of all these blue stress balls to them, and with a handwritten note that just said, "Hey, bud, it takes a lot of balls to run a place like yours. If you ever need us, call me." And like, and it was all tracked. So I got the alert when it was delivered, and he calls me within like 20 minutes, and he's like, that was one of the best things I've ever gotten. And then I think we know what happened with Toys R Us. So, right. But it was just like little things like that just, I always enjoyed doing as well.
What an awesome, you are so creative. Like people don't think like that, right? They don't like connect on a human level. Like, what's this guy going through?
Well,
right?
that could have also, he could have been totally offended.
Fair.
to say, hey, but it's with that same token, I was telling you when we were talking earlier, to me, it was, we took pride in, in kind of going back to vetting a little bit and vetting our cleaners. Granted, we all know things happen. As much as you vet people and try to have the best of the best, there's bad apples. But when you have a cleaning company, a facilities company, and you're cleaning the CEO's office in these big important buildings, don't you want the best possible people in there, hopefully? Because like, you don't know what information's out there being like laid around. So we came up with like a campaign, which was basically a picture of like a dude behind bars. And it was like, do you want this person cleaning like your place? And we got like 2 calls back. People like, there's still people too. But yeah, it was just like, listen, we get it. Like we all know, like, my dad hires those people in like the warehouse. They're just not going to be cleaning. You know what I mean? Like different company. But it's like, there's a time and a place for everything. But it's like, you weren't going to hire us anyway, lady.
Brilliant.
But yeah.
That's great, man. That's great. And then launch right into the entertainment. Now, was there another? I thought there was something else you had. There was a call you made that was, oh my God, it was hysterical. I was rolling for a day after you told me this story. You want to tell it?
So it was an old list of like the one sales guy. It was just like, like it was just, people who just never called back. It was just like leads. And I called. And I'm horrible with grammar, and for someone who speaks for a living and talks for a living, I'm horrible with like, if I see a word, I'm like, this is going to come out wrong. But I saw the name, and no BS, his name was Dick Butts. And so I'm like, here we go. Day 1 of sales, like day 1 working sales in Sovereign, like not cleaning anymore, now doing sales. And I call up, hey, looking for Mr. Dick Butts. And the woman goes, it's Boots, and he just died yesterday.
Ouch. Double whammy. What'd you do?
I am so sorry. And I hung up. And then I went to Harvey, the other sales guy. I was like, you will not believe this one. Yeah, that was whew,
Humbling right from the start.
extremely,
Well played.
extremely.
Danny, tell me about I'm gonna jump back into entertainment now, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about the Huckabee show, because I watched the clip recently and I was like, man, that was an awesome magic trick.
They're illusions, Michael. No, that was an Arrested Development joke. That was cool. That was really cool. Because I thought Penn and Teller got a lot of views, which they do. They get like 1 million per episode. Huck gets like 2. Like he kills it. And when I got that email, because Penn and Teller Fool Us, I reached out to them because I'm a big fan of just commit first, figure the rest out later. And if you want anything, my dad always said, if you don't ask, you don't know. So I reached out to the Fool Us people. I was like, hey, I got this thing, and they're like, oh, this is great. I was like, all right. So like that worked. Huck, his team reached out to me, like, hey,
big compliment.
Yeah, I was like, all right. And they said, like, what do you got? And I was like, well, let me think of something special. And so I went down the rabbit hole of watching all my other friends and people on that show, and a lot of the tricks were about them or themselves or just nonsense. So I did a trick that was about their people, was about all of their staff. So it's based off a very old card trick, but instead of using cards, I went in early and I took Polaroid pictures of all of their staff, because they have a staff of like 50 people there. Like there's a lot of people who make that show happen. So I was making the show about them. So it was a trick with all Polaroids about them and like their people. And they like loved it. And then they allowed me, and so did like the staff, for me to like play with them like a little bit. And I think there were some other like little jokes and things that I like threw in, but they didn't like do. Like the one guy with the I can't totally remember. Did they cut the lights on me?
I don't think so.
Okay. There were some things we couldn't do, just like production, whatever. But there was like certain things, like I was like, not roasting, but like playfully roasting certain people from it. And like at one point, like I think the mic was supposed to go out. So I was like, roasting the sound guy. And then I was like making fun of the light guy, and the lights were supposed to go out. So like there's only so much you can do in so little time. But that whole experience, even Penn and Teller, was just because sometimes in some of those TV shows, they're not always the best to the entertainers, or they don't treat them well, or they cut things to not look a certain way. But both of them both have entertainers at the heart and want to make everybody look as good as possible. So, I mean, it was a fantastic I got to hang out and chat, briefly, very, very briefly, but it was still a very cool experience. It's something I will never forget.
Good for you, Denny. Yeah, and it was so enjoyable to watch too. It was a really good trick. I mean,
it was.
So, where do people check it out? Can you just while we're in the moment? How do watch it?
Just YouTube Denny Corby Huckabee. It's called Magic with Polaroids. It was a great. That was so much fun. That was so much fun.
It's awesome, man. Nice. So, all right. So you're a magician. You're a major entertainer. You've got your podcast. You're in so deep with these clubs, serving this entire community. What does Denny Corby do when he's not doing all of that? Like how do you spend your time, man?
Connecting, booking more shows. To me, and it's one of those, it's when you start getting comfortable and content and, complacent, that's when bad things happen. Felt that a little bit during the pandemic. I got a little cocky. And then that's when, when you start thinking you're hot stuff, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, where did some of those gigs go? Like, oh, because, you stop building those relationships, you stop following up, you stop sales never ends. It never, you always got to be hustling a little bit. So, I'm big on those relationships, working my CRM, interviewing for private club radio. And really I do a lot of travel. So it's probably me and my wife on the couch with our 2 dogs, Bella and Big Meech.
Big Meech?
Big Meech. He's named after the cocaine drug lord from the Black Mafia family, BMF, out of Detroit.
Good for you. That's
Wish I
awesome.
was kidding. Wish I was kidding. But yeah, just keep it low key. We enjoy going to some breweries, hanging out, enjoying time with friends and stuff. But I've as I get a little bit older too, there's the stage, there's Denny Corby on stage and there's off stage Denny Corby, and they are two different people a little bit. Still, it's still like an enhanced version, but the same, but a little bit different. So a little bit condensed.
Good for you, man. It's so inspiring to, like, we've known each other, 11 years now, right? And that's amazing. Time flies. And I've
12.
watched your career, right? I've watched what you're doing, and mainly through social, right? But it's very inspiring. It's very cool. And it's like, wow, if you think you can go do something, then just go do it, because that's exactly what you did and are doing.
I'm extremely fortunate I was able to make it work, and the pandemic in a weird way definitely helped. That was a blessing in disguise. But yeah, it's just like anything. It's a lot of work. It's people, it's relationships, it's connections.
100%. Well, I want to give you time here if someone wants to connect with you on Private Club Radio, how would they do it?
Private Club Radio is on all major platforms. Just type in Private Club Radio, privateclubradio.com, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. I pimp that thing everywhere.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's everywhere. I'm everywhere. Denny Corby. I'm probably the most active right now on LinkedIn. That's been my kind of little platform I've been spending a lot of time on, because I was spending a little time on all of them, but now I'm trying to really just focus on LinkedIn. I think that's a underutilized platform right now, and that's for anybody. I think right now it's easy to engage and get engagement, and that's where some of the professionals are and some of the people who probably we all want to connect with and network with. And then obviously you could take it from there to the other platforms, but I think that's a great platform. So that's where I'm at if you want to connect with me.
That's perfect. And of course your website, right?
DennyCorby.com.
Nice. So if someone wanted to book you, just go to LinkedIn, look up Denny Corby, right?
Or go to DennyCorby.com.
There you go. All right. That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
I am everywhere.
You are a true pleasure. You're an inspiration. I mean, like, I have been talking about what I saw you do at Jack Daly since that time. And so there were two of us from the company, John Lydon and myself were there. And I'm like, dude, he's going to do the show with me. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, he's coming on the show. Isn't that cool? Like, celebrity 50th episode. So Denny, truly, I can't thank you enough, man. Thanks for like really taking your time and being here with us.
This means though, it's weird being on the other side of the whole thing. And it's weird because I keep wanting to like ask you questions, because I'm like, I'm talking too much. This is not right. But no, this has been so fantastic. Hopefully everybody got a little bit of something from it. It's been, the club world, the facilities world has been, fantastic to me and my family. And and I will say nothing will be I don't know. There's something about stripping and waxing a floor that is just so like borderline calming, because you'd have this like horrible product and all of a sudden this like amazing, well done. I don't know. There's just something cathartic to it almost.
If you want to make Denny Corby happy, you can book a gig with him, but you can also ask him to strip and wax your floor, because that'll be more gratifying, it sounds like.
I've gotten paid a lot more to do a lot less. So no, or I've done a lot more for a lot less. So
thank you so much, man. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone listening, I hope you thoroughly enjoyed Denny Corby. I mean, if you laughed, if you learned something, reach out to him directly. And hey, we'll see everyone on Facility Rockstars next week.
It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.